As you can see behind me here, I've got the CB750 engine there. It's exactly where we left it. So we'd opened it out, figured out obviously that the metal shavings that we got on the oil pan at the bottom were coming from the shells. The shells were worn all the way down, and that's pretty much why there was an abundance of shaving in our oil. Today's job is going to be something that I can't necessarily do here. I don't have the tools to do it, I don't have the measuring tools. These measuring tools cost an absolute fortune. I'd rather just take it somewhere to be done professionally and to be measured professionally, and then I don't have to worry, do I? No worries, easy life. So what I've got to do is measure the crank against the original specs. We have the original specs in the manual there. Measure the crank, then measure what shells we need putting in. Now, this is where it gets complicated. The shells originally were all color coded. Green, yellow, blue, I think it was, on a lot of these shells, with the engine being nearly 40 years old, 39 years old, nearly 40 years old. The shells probably haven't been changed in that time. The colours have all worn off. They're not there anymore. They're just a little paint coat, that's all they are. They've worn off, so we can't actually identify what shells were there beforehand. So what we can do is measure the crank and then try and figure out what shells are needed to go in here, and we can try and rebuild the engine that way. But the first thing I've got to do is pack this engine up, put the casing back on, and then I can take it to be measured. So the thing is with these Honda CB750 engines is that the casing and the crank is actually made pretty much on spec, so it's made for the crank, and what you'll have on the back here, if you can see it, stamped in numbers. I don't know if you can see it any better if I spray it with some carb cleaner just to make it stand out. But anyway, you need to have hawk eyes to see these, especially if they're covered with paint and oxidization and everything. It's obviously over the years it's going to wear out. So here you can see B, 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 and I think there's another B there. So what I do now, look at my chart, I know that the casing are all B's. Take the reference from chart, I need to measure the crank itself, see what measurements that is. In fact, the crank itself should have measurements written on it with letters or numbers. I can't remember which one it is now, I think it might be letters. But because it is a 40-year-old engine and things probably have worn down, it's better off to actually measure it rather than take for granted what the numbers are on here. So I need to do that as well. I need to actually measure that. So that is the bit I need to measure. There we go. That's first of the con rods off. Just looking at these crank shells here, or these conrod shells as I say, I mean they're not as bad as the crank shells were, but they still need replacing. They've started to wear down. So it was a good call that we decided to do that. Well, this episode hasn't really turned out as exciting as what I thought it was going to be. I've not been able to get so much done, but it's been months in the making because so much has got in the way, such as the gentleman's ride, getting the CX done in time for the bike shed. So this engine video is long overdue, so I thought I'd put one out there anyway, just as an update. We now have a bit of success. We have these beautiful newly honed heads. All that old gasket and everything needs to come out. It's been checked, it's below, I think it's 62mm tolerance before you have to go oversized on pistons and all sorts. It's below that, it's well within the limit. So all we need is a fresh set of piston rings. Whilst I've got the pistons off and the head off, oh my god, I'm covered with all this fake silver paint everywhere. Whilst I've got everything apart, I might as well change the rings on there. The pistons themselves are alright. It would make sense if you're going to replace the pistons with some lighter weight ones and all sorts, but I'm not going to be doing that. I'm just going to change the piston ring. But it's been honed, ready for the new rings. And as well, I've got the crank back. Oh, heavy. Oh no, it's a brand new jumper as well. I'm gonna get it dirty. Oh my god. So I've got the crank back, and boy does it weigh a ton. I know you can buy lightweight cranks and everything. There's a brilliant website out there. Whew, I've got to put my arm on here to rest. There's a brilliant website out there. I can't remember what the names are off the top of my head. And basically they do CB750 parts. They do new cranks, new con rods, new everything. Everything to do with the engine, and they actually get your engine pretty meaty. But they do cost an arm and a leg or a liver on the black market. But anyway, nonetheless, I've had this measured, so I couldn't see any markings. Well, I can see a few. There are a couple on here. But I can't see markings on every single place where there should be markings, so I can't really tell what measurements these are. What I have done is I've set this away to be measured. I've had the measurements back. I now know exactly, looking at my chart, which is in the factory manual itself, just down there, there is a chart saying what I need to look for. So I know that on the crankcase, I've got B markings on every single crankshell area, and I've got these measured now, so it doesn't matter what the numbers, letters in here, I know the exact measurement. So I now know what crankshells I need to put in the CB750. I'm going to put this down before I break my arm. So my next step, I can't believe I'm out of breath. I really need to go to the gym more. So my next steps is to obviously clean this as clean as possible, the outside that is, now that the inside sorted. I need to clean the outside. I need to get that nice and shiny, and we are going to paint the engine. I'm not sure yet. I've got a feeling that a gloss black would be nice on this, because we've got the frame powder coated a satin black. If we went with a gloss black on the engine, that would make the engine just stand out even more. I think if we went with a satin black as well, it would all kind of blend in too much. But that change of texture, the satin on the frame and the gloss of the engine, will both make the engine look newer. Kind of satin black engines fade to the back. Glossy engines stand out, newer in a way. I'm going to order the shells this week. Hopefully it should be like a next day delivery or something like that with the shells. So next week I'm hoping that we'll have the reassembling of the CB750 engine. I've also got the wheel here, or the rim, for the CB750. Strangely enough, I found out that the front rim is a 1.85 inch width rim. On the CX500 it's 2.15, so the CX500, even though it being a smaller engine bike and kind of like a lighter bike, it's got a wider front rim than the CB. CB, I think I'm going to get away with 90 width tyres. I wanted to put 110 on the CB. I thought in my head that the CB would have a wider rim. It doesn't. I've put 100s on the CX. I'm going to put 90s, but that's the widest we can go with a 1.85 rims. And then on the rear I'm going to put 130s, so they will be coming as well. I've also got the new chain sprocket as well to put on the back of this, so that is nice and shiny. Coming this week, I'm hoping to get a Ducati video out, and we'll see more of the CX500 as well, and then back to the GS550 and the wiring and that. So I've all got it going. Happy times. It feels like things are progressing at the moment here, and I've got some amazing new news to tell you in the next coming weeks. It's really exciting. It's kind of like a new direction for the channel. It's not going to be a new workshop, unfortunately. I could do with a bigger workshop. This one's getting a bit too small at the moment. I need a bigger boat. So with that all said from me, subscribe to this channel if you like what you see. Follow me on Instagram, visit fortheboulderindustries.com if you want to see some merchandise. And until Friday, ride safe, have fun, have a good week.